Over the last 20 years, I've worked with literally hundreds of managers developing their leadership skills. It seems to me there's so much written about leadership that many people simply become confused. There are so many things you seem to have to focus on, it can all become a blur. But in my experience, the whole thing can be simplified down to thinking about it as 3 eyes. Leaders need an eye that looks in, an eye that looks out, and an eye that looks in between. My name is Bruce Holland, and I'm the founder of Virtual Group Business Consultants Limited. So let's look at the eye that looks inside. In many ways, this is the most important eye. Inside is where the power is. Managers need to know who they are, why they exist, and what makes them special. Otherwise, there's no way anyone else can know who they are, why they exist, or what makes them special. Yet this is the weakest eye in most cases. If managers aren't strong on the inside, there's simply no way they can be strong on the outside. As your strength grows on the inside, others can't be helped but notice and be attracted to it. I'd like to tell you a story. 400 years ago, a group of Thai monks hid their golden Buddha from marauding tribes, and they covered the golden Buddha with clay. Soon after, the temple was attacked, and everyone in the Buddhist temple and in the surrounding area were killed. And so the whole knowledge of this golden Buddha was lost. For the next 400 years, everyone thought this Buddha was a clay Buddha. Recently, when they tried to move it, the clay broke off and the golden Buddha inside was revealed. Now, I think this is a beautiful analogy of human beings because I've found that we all have a golden Buddha inside. Often it's covered with mud that the people we've trusted most in our lives have flicked at us. People like managers, parents, teachers. But pathetically, we've also flicked mud at ourselves until we have almost totally forgotten the core of greatness that exists inside. But let's think about the greatness. What is this core of greatness that I said, the golden Buddha that's inside of all of us? To be successful, you don't have to change who you are. You just have to become more of who you are. It's largely about understanding your purpose and genius. Understanding your purpose is part of finding your core of greatness. Because, just as a seed or a plant or of a tree somehow knows what it will sometimes be, human beings have within them a sense of purpose and knowledge of what they are intended to be. Not necessarily clearly defined. When people are angry, greedy, self-interested, it's often because of an unconscious sense that their seed is unable to grow and they are not allowed to be themselves. Understanding genius is the other part of greatness. We all have a genius factor. Most people have no idea what it is. Occasionally, they almost trip over it. They succeed like they've never succeeded and they think, wow, what the hell happened here? Way beyond their expectations, but they forget about it because it happens so regularly. The trick is to identify your genius and use it more often and more deliberately. One of the questions people ask me is, how do I go about finding my genius factor? I always think Herman's brain dominance instrument is a great way to start. To simplify it really, really down, you can think of it as the blue people are great with the intellectual quotient. The green people are more physical. They're great at getting stuff done and following processes. The red people are an emotional quadrant. And these people are much more about the spiritual. Why am I here? How can I make a difference? What's the meaning in life? What's the vision? Where are we trying to get to? So now let's look at the eye that looks out. And in many ways, this eye that looks out is the most well developed. Most managers are in touch with their external world. That's what they've been trained to do. It's how they spend their time. They scan their organizations and their environment for opportunities and threats. They study competitors and their customers for change to take advantage. Yet even this eye has a limited focus. It can see really well to analyse and break things apart and to understand the detail. but I found it's far less successful at synthesizing and seeing the patterns in the bigger system in most managers. Also, managers' world vision is often outdated. It's based on mechanics more than organics. It's almost as though they're seeing this organisation like a clock or a machine that they can break up and turn around and change and downsize and cut back and restructure and re-engineer. Now this is okay for simple problems in a predictable environment, but it's not nearly so good for wicked problems in a complex environment. Let's look at the eye that looks in between. Scientists know that we're much more connected than most business people think, but somehow or other that knowledge hasn't translated well into business. David Bohm showed that if you separate atomic particles and the two elements of the particle go to opposite ends of the universe, then if you alter the spin in one element, it will change instantaneously the spin in the other. That's what he called unbroken wholeness of the universe. The most important thing going forward, he said, the most important thing going forward is to break the boundaries between people so that we can cooperate as a single intelligence. David Bohm, 1980. Einstein, maybe the most influential 20th century scientist, said, human beings experience themselves as thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of our consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and our fictions for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So that's a pretty deep stuff. But what does it mean really for managers? Most managers, when they look at their organisations, see it like this image, where they'll see Bruce and they'll see Peter. But really it's not the parts that matter so much as the interaction between the parts. It's the relationships that are primary. Space that people think is empty space is actually full of stuff. Communications, emotions, energy, trust, love, synergy, and information. We need to start thinking about relationships. So instead of thinking of the organisation as a formal tree, where got Josh down here, little guy right at the bottom, actually when you start seeing it as relationships and put it into a network, informal network type approach, you find that Josh is central to the whole organisation. People come to Josh because he's got the answers, they trust him. I've come to realise that human energy is a vast ocean. It's our biggest single opportunity. And it's big not just because it is enormous in size, deep and powerful, but also because no one's much is using it. People are not looking inside, seeing those relationships, seeing how we can actually get people working together better. The most important thing to make this world better is to understand relationships better. So let's just summarise the 3 I's. When I went to university and studied leadership, I was taught about planning and organising and staffing and directing and controlling. The 3 I's give us a totally different way about thinking of leadership. The eye that looks within, the eye that looks outside, and the eye that looks in between. We have put together a program that whole organisations go through. If there's 50 people in the organisation, all 50 will go through. If there's 500, all 500 will go through. And they're based on half-day modules, which are usually about 2 weeks apart. We might start off with understanding your Herman, understanding your genius, understanding how to liberate human energy, how to think strategically, how to think in terms of systems and so on. Depends on what the diagnostics shows are the problems for that particular organisation.